So Anna, we had a bunch of travel last year, and one of the many and amazing trips that we went on was a trip to Normandy with Colonel Hall. Dress Detour, D-Day Normandy. Can you tell me a little bit about the trip and what it was all about?
Honestly, what I love most is Colonel Hall, how he engaged everyone and how he had this way of teaching, especially the younglings, because there were some kids on the trip, not only me. You know, he has this way of engaging everyone and making it fun and not just a boring lesson that you'd probably have with a tour guide. Which I'm sure many of you guys probably had some of those. So what he did on the beaches to keep everyone engaged was with his little walking stick, he would draw out like where they would come in, where paratroopers would come in too, all of the beaches, the whole entire coast. And then he would also, as the young commandos, we would each be an individual beach. So Omaha or Utah, Gold, Sword, or Juneau. And we would go to every single one of those beaches, and the beach that you were assigned was what you would talk, like he would talk about. So you would stand there with all of the other kids, and some of us would like link arms to show that we were closer than some of the other beaches. I can't remember which beach was the furthest one. I think it was Utah.
I think so too. It was the furthest south.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
How many miles was it? Do you remember?
60 miles.
60 miles of D-Day beaches that hundreds of thousands of soldiers, infantry soldiers came and landed. Many died just basically upon arrival.
1 second off the ship. Some
Right.
people never even got on land because they had heavy gear and the water looked shallow, but it wasn't, and so they drowned.
Do you remember why it was important that he took us out there on low tide?
Because that was actually the time that they went out. So we would go all the way out to the beach where the water would begin, and we would look back and see how far they had to run just to go climb up the hills and take over the Germans. And honestly, that was really, really, really impressive on how far they had to run and how far they had to fight. It was cool because you were there in the moment and you were there engaged and you know what it was like for them. But
Scary.
yeah, scary, intimidating.
You brought us, it's not a souvenir, but if you could show us our operations book. What is it called? The operation plan.
Yes, operations plan 6644E, and the code name was Overlord Redux 5, which was the whole entire plan.
Right. Hold it up and show us
So here is the cover of the book. We have all of the airborne divisions at the top. There's the 82nd, 101st, and the 6th Airborne. Basically, this whole entire book is history along with what you do on the trip. So there's takeaways. It's pretty cool. You know, it has, first off, the photos with everyone on the trip. So our commandos and our colonel. It's really nice because you actually get to know the people before you go on the trip. And also, what I loved here is that there are little tabs for each day. So you know, oh, I wonder what Colonel has planned for tomorrow. You can just flip to that day. So say we're on day 3 or day 2 and you want to see day 3. This is basically what we do. And it has it all laid out, has all the beaches. It's really cool. Well, there was mission prep, as you mentioned, post and pre. So for the pre-prep, we basically talk about what kind of like break down what we're going to talk about that day. The post-prep is basically a mix of a summarization on what we learned and also what we're going to do the next day. So you're very aware of what is happening during the whole trip. And actually, the coolest part is Colonel goes on these little morning jogs, and speaking from experience, they are beautiful. I mean, you are running through like fields, little grass fields, or should I say jogging.
Yeah. The sun is rising.
The sun is rising, the
In
clouds are
Normandy.
out. You can see the whole entire Bayeux Cathedral. En français, le Bayeux Cathédrale. It's the coolest. And honestly, what bring warmth to my heart is that none of really the adults went on any of the jogs, but it was all of the kids on the first morning, the first day. We all got up and we all went out to the little meet area and we went with him, and he was so happy. You know, the difference between the German and the American Normandy cemeteries are the energy, really. It's like you walk into the German cemetery and it's all sad. There's like black everywhere and it's sad, and that's what the energy brings.
Yeah.
You know, the American cemetery is a lot different. And what I mean by a lot is a lot, because once you walk in, there's flowers and gardens and it's so well maintained. And then once you actually get to the actual whole entire where everyone's buried, there are white crosses everywhere with names and flags, and it is so beautifully all like divided, I would say. And you know, the coolest thing that Colonel did for us was this little activity called Find Your Fallen. And that's basically all about, you get a white rose and an envelope, and you follow the Colonel, and we have, what are they? Docents that will take you to the grave, and in that little envelope is your fallen soldier. In the envelope, there is history and just a little description about the fallen underneath you, including their name, their birth date, their birthplace, and how they died. And me personally, I got Jimmy Monteith, who was one of the 4 or 3 people who got a Medal of Honor. And it was so heartwarming for me, because Colonel individually picks your fallen for you. And it was just so, like, learning about him and what he did was so heartbreaking that it just, like, reminds you that you never want to go through that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of, you know, fish and meat. But my personal favorite was the salmon tartare and a little bit of the boeuf tartare. But salmon tartare was so far the top. Even like tops, sometimes even German cuisine, like it was the best there, and they did such a good job. And especially in Bayeux, because it's a small little city or a town, and it's so nice. The food there is amazing. The view and the cathedral is amazing, breathtaking, really, once you enter the cathedral, which there is a tour involved, so you get to see all of that. There's multiple old buildings, and actually across from where we ate one night, there was a building that still has bullet marks in it, and that was so cool, because it's like, wow, that really happened. So we also take a trip to a bunch of museums. And this here is just a little souvenir that I got from the Airborne Museum, which was hands down the coolest museum. This one just has all of like the 2 airborne divisions, and then this one right here, this one we got where the museum is, and it's in, it's the Sainte-Mère d'Église church. And there's really cool stories about a soldier who landed on the church and had to be cut down by Germans. And it was really cool, honestly. I usually put it out when we are talking about our trip because I feel like that's the coolest, because I have 3 coins from Normandy about the 2 divisions. That's the 82nd and 101st Airborne Division. And yeah.
If there's anyone out there, why would you say should they go on this trip?
Well, if you're interested in war and history, there's a great colonel, there's a great colonel and a teacher. It's really interesting because I'd say it's such a raw, learning experience, something you'd never get in school, in public education. It's just a really cool learning experience, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's great to be at the place where many people sacrifice themselves for countries.